Hey, what's up everyone? This is Jay Dreamers, and I think many of us have started to come to this realization that we live in an Alice in Wonderland kind of world where fact is really fiction and fiction is really fact. And the stories of old that we're presented with in the guise of myth and legend and fantasy really have the strongest core truths to them, and that our real history has been hidden from us. And in light of that, personally, I was really excited about the No Forest on Flat Earth video, because if you don't know what it is, I'll try to remember to leave a link. But the person who made the video basically says that mesas, modern day mesas or flat topped mountains, are actually the tree stumps of ancient giant trees that once lived in a silica age. Or an age where things were mostly made of silica or silicon. So that got me thinking about all kinds of things, especially the elves. The elves are a race of beings that live right alongside humanity that have fallen into the category of lore and myth and legend and fantasy and fiction. However, the more I look into these things, the more realistic the idea and the creature and the being of the elf really is. So, do I think that elves are probably real, or at least used to be real? Yes, I strongly do lean towards that. Now, I think that we have demonized the elven race and turned them into what we now call the reptilians. Alright, and this was spearheaded by David Icke, which was a man that I looked up to, and he actually helped me to start thinking outside of the box, and I appreciate all his research and work. However, I always thought there was more to it than just this scary, evil reptilian idea. I thought there was way more to it. And now I'm looking into the silica age, and now things like Rh negative blood types are coming into play, and how we're related to various alien type races. So let me get right into this video. I have a lot of pictures and stuff to show you that go along with this. So when we think of the reptilian races, right, we usually think of the skin. We think of like scaly skin, sometimes kind of shiny. We think of them as being kind of cold-blooded and very like non-emotional, basically, kind of like a Spock type being, you know what I mean? I'm sure YouTube just froze that picture. But I want to read to you something from the book of Enoch, alright? This is something that not a lot of people talk about. When they talk about Enoch, they usually talk about the giants and the fallen angels. Well, here's the birth of Noah. And it says, "After a time, my son Methuselah took a wife for his son Lamech. She became pregnant by him and brought forth a child, the flesh of which was as white as snow and red as a rose, the hair of whose head was white like wool and long, and whose eyes were beautiful. When he opened them, he illuminated the house like the sun. The whole house abounded with light." So this is the birth of Noah in the Bible. You know Noah and the flood? Well, Noah's birth was a shock to everybody, because basically his dad looked at him and said, "Oh my God, he looks like the angels. He looks like the beings from the air." All right? And the beings from the air, the angels, the gods, they all have so many names, okay? But it was another race of beings. And this kid, Noah, looked just like him. Now, when Noah was born, it goes on, I'm going to summarize, but when Noah was born, it says that, soon after he was born, like he basically started talking, and he was able to like walk around and stuff. And Noah lived for an extremely long amount of time. So I'm going to compare this birth of Noah to the elven race and link that to what we now call the reptilian race. So where do we get the word elf from? E-L-F. Now, the core of that word is the word El, which basically means God or mighty leader. Matter of fact, here it is right here. Nope, here it is right here. Okay, so these are the two hieroglyphic symbols in ancient Phoenician or Hebrew, whatever you want to call it, from right to left. This is the picture of an ox. It means strong. This is the picture of a staff. which is sort of upside down, which means to lead. It's a strong leader, a mighty leader. This is where we get the word God, El, or in the Middle East they might say Al, or Al, or Allah, or whatever it may be. Elohim. All these words come from the word strong leader. All right. So I typed into Google ELF. Okay. The F in L. All right. The F is not an F. All right. It's important for you to know this. The F is actually a U or a V, which were the same letters. Because people said Elv with the V sounds very much like an F. So the word elf came from a morphing of language over time. But originally, it's my strong inclination that it was ELV or ELU originally. Because the U started to be pronounced with an accent like a V sound, which is where we get our letters U and V. So Elu or Elv. All right. So I typed into Google Elu. What does the word El with the U at the end mean? And in French, it just popped up an elected representative. Well, to me, that was really interesting. So, and I'm going to let you guys make some of these connections yourselves. I also typed in ELU. First thing that popped up on the internet was the Scottish Rites of Freemasonry. Now look at this. If you can see it, the 9th degree of the Scottish Rite is Elu of the 9. Or, said in cowboy language of today, Elf of the 9. Elv of the 9. The 10th degree is Elv of the 15. We have Elv of the 12. And the 14th degree is Perfect Elf, or Elu. All right. Now you got to remember, it all depends on how you pronounce these things, and the pronunciation and dialect has changed over time. But it's Elu or Elu. All right, so let's move on. Here is a picture of one of the ancient gods. You know him as Thor. This is sort of his cartoonish version that Marvel has come out with. But what I want you to pay particular attention to is his chainmail. His armor. Look at his arm. This is like a scaly type of an outer covering. This is symbolic of skin, of the original skin of the gods. They had skin that was known to shine and to be tough and to help them in being strong and stuff like that. Now, personally, I think that the skin of ancient beings before certain disasters and things like that, in what I call the silica age, I think that they may have been more silica based, like crystal, like a crystalline sort of skin that they may have had. And I think that this has been passed down to things like Thor here, the ancient god, the ancient El or Elv, right, with his long hair. And now Thor usually has like a helmet, and it's got these huge wings coming up from his ears to make it look like he has pointy ears, like an elf, right? All right, let's move on. And he has a cape, okay, because he flies, right? These are the elves flew. Anyways, here's a picture of some reptilian skin, okay? Now, it's sort of like, it's kind of like Thor's, you know what I mean? It's sort of protective, it's hard, and this is where we're starting to get this reptilian idea from, because we're trying to piece things together from the carbon-based world that we live in today and compare it to a fantasy world of a long time ago. I think that that's an error in thinking. I think that we need to use our imaginations and be a little more creative than to just compare ancient silica-based skin structure to a reptilian-based skin structure of today. So, you could sort of see some kind of a resemblance. This is where we jump to. Now, this is the skin of a snake. As you can see, it's glistening and it shines in the light. How much more would the skin of Thor or someone over here? Look at his skin shining in the light, right? All right, let's move on. Oops. I'll get to the blue gods in a minute. Okay, so ancient silica beings, the shining gods of old. I think that their skin was much different looking. And honestly, I have an idea that if it was silica based, it may look something like really white, really pale, and almost see-through. Here's a picture of some silica aerogel. This is one of the strongest materials that we've ever created, and personally I think it might be what the dome is made out of, but that's a whole different video I've already done. But imagine this was someone's skin in ancient times. It's tough, it's strong, it's fire resistant. It's just an idea I have, okay? Here's another picture of some silica aerogel. Imagine this as a piece of skin from ancient beings, right? Long time ago. Very pale, very white. Now here's a picture of an elf. This is from the Lord of the Rings. This is a noble picture. This is a picture of an elf as what they should look like. However, what do we think of when we think of an elf? We don't think of a being that looks like this. We think of something like this. We think of the reptilians. This is what we have demonized them to be. We have demonized the ancient silica life forms that were considered regal and noble and immortal and lived for thousands of years. Well, they lived forever until they, were killed or gave up their spirit. And we've turned them into this. We've turned them into lizard beings. You guys don't, most of you don't like to be, called monkeys or say that evolution, made you a monkey into a human. How much less would a regal, noble silica being enjoy being called a lizard? You know what I mean? But what else do we think of when we think of elves? Do you imagine something like this guy? This is goofy. This is dumb. This is the dumbing down. This is the belittling of the elven race. You think of elves and we've made them stupid and, Santa's helpers, and they're either goofy or they're reptilian. They're one or the other. And only in fantasy worlds where some people can appreciate the elven nature do we see them as they should be, like this. Now, elves, from my studies, were basically immortal beings, and they had a way of life completely different to us humans. And it very well may be that many of us might actually trace some lineage to elven life forms because they're almost identical to human in nature. So it may be possible that the elves could mate with the humans. Now here's some interesting facts according to lore and legend on elves. First of all, elves were immortal, okay? They lived for as long as they wanted to, unless they were killed or unless they gave up their spirit. And usually they would give up their spirit if they were grieved and they were just feeling very negative. They could just leave. An elf could not be raped. They would die before they would be raped. So it was impossible for them to be raped. Elves were not very sexual. They were more music. They were into music, into learning, into the arts, into bettering themselves. They did have children, but it was few and far between. Their children didn't even mature until they were about 50 to 100 years old. So when they had sex, it was with the intention of having children and to be married to one another. So sex and a sexual promiscuity in the elven community was unheard of, okay? Sex was not what we have made it, the human race has made it today. Elves were more interested in learning and gathering information and edifying their souls. Now, I want to talk about something real quick before I sign off. That's not to say that all elves are or were beautiful and positive and lovers of humanity, etc. According to elvish lore, the elves separated into many different factions, and actually many of them left what we call Middle Earth or Midgard, which in my opinion is the flat Earth map that we currently live on, and they went to go live into other regions outside of the flat Earth map. Now, some of them stayed here, and because they don't procreate as much as humans, they became less and less and less, especially throughout the wars and things of this nature. So, I drew a blank. I think I'll end it right there. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave all of your comments and any information that you might have about elves, and if you think that they may be real or if they're delegated to only fantasy. Do you think they've been demonized? What are your thoughts on the elves? I can't wait to read it. Until then, I'll see you guys next time.